Hi, beautiful people. Welcome back. If you're new, my name is Georgia. So, today we are going to do a recap and a review of Belle Collective Season 3, Episode 4, titled Boys to Men. So, if you remember where we left off the last episode, we saw where Marie was in the process of signing paperwork to actually help Letitia rent an apartment because Letitia wants to move away from Glen, and they figured if they put the apartment in Marie's name that Glenn wouldn't find her, but we saw that he popped up. So we left that where it is. Remember Marie told him he had to go, and he gave her whatever words he had to tell her. But now, and when we also in that last episode, we saw where JJ was making Soguchi such a nice meal and he wanted to be all romantic, and she knew something was up, and he kind of told her that his mom wants to move in with them, and he tried to give her some reasons that he thought were good, as far as, oh, you work too much, so therefore if we have mama here, then she could help us prepare some meals and stuff. She could have your coffee time for you, so by the time you wake up it's percolating and stuff like that. And so Gucci told him, I hope you didn't tell her. Yes. And I don't think he answered her. But now we're opening up this episode where they're sitting down and they're talking. I think his mom was supposed to come over just to have a conversation. But we see the mom, they're sitting there talking, and then we hear the horn blowing outside. And the mom come in all loud and stuff, like real boisterous, like, you're supposed to be outside waiting on me, come help me get my stuff out the car, and so on and so forth. So then they're talking about how the living arrangements are gonna be. The mom told them, listen, I have my coffee between 4:30 and 5 o'clock every morning, so don't try to come have a conversation with me or disturb me or anything like that. She's like, what else did she say? JJ was actually telling her, like how the schedule is, where he's like, sometimes I want to spend time alone with my wife, and don't come in the man cave or the bear cave or whatever he calls it. And then he asks his mom, so this is supposed to be temporary, right? She's like, how long do you think you're gonna be around? And she basically says she don't know how long she's gonna be there. So JJ was like, oh my God. And of course, so Gucci's enjoying it, because he's the one who's, you could see, is starting to regret the decision to have her move in. So it should be really interesting to see all of them living together. So we left them there, and then we have Latrice and Cliff. Remember, Latrice and Cliff, even though they live in the same house, they're not really communicating. So Latrice invited Cliff out to dinner so they could have a talk about multiple things. So she's like, some apologies are in order. I need to apologize to you for some things, and I hope you know that you have to apologize to me for others. So Cliff was like, so what do you feel that you need to apologize for? So she's like, I'm sorry I didn't tell you I was going out for drinks with my friends, or we're going to M Bar. But then now we come to find out why Cliff was so upset when they went into the bar. It so happened that he had asked, or in his words, he had thrown Josh out of his house the day before, and now we have Latrice meeting up with him to actually have drinks. And Cliff was like, no, that ain't right. You're supposed to be my wife. You're supposed to stand with me on certain things. You're supposed to back me up as my wife, and here I find you sneaking around and having drinks with the guy who I just threw out of my house. But at the same time, Josh and Latrice worked together, so it's not like when he threw Josh out of his house, she wasn't going to see him for a while, because he's at work every day with her. So Latrice, she apologized for that. And then she's like, I think you need to apologize to me too. And he's like, no, I'm not going to apologize to you for that, because what I felt you did was wrong. So they go on to, continue talking. And she asks him, she's like, don't you think that we are equal as far as this relationship is concerned? And he says no, because as we all know, Cliff, in Latrice's words, is like he wants her at home. He wants her to be a housewife. He wants to have another child. So he doesn't really want her out there in the business world. And if she wants to be in the business world, she can be. But at the same time, he feels that she needs to take care of the household as well. So Latrice told him, like, well, if you don't think we're equal, that means that I'm above you then. And I'm like, okay, that's a new one. You know, I've never heard anybody put it like that before. But I guess it can't be done that way. And Cliff was like, listen, I'm never going to change my mind. I am the man of this house. If you don't want me to be the man of this house, then I'll leave and then you could run the household. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as I'm here, I'm the man of my house. And whatever I say happens in my house, that's what happens in my house. So therefore, him and Latrice really didn't get anywhere. She got up and she left, and she's like, all right, I'll see you at home. So I'm guessing they came in separate cars. They just came out to do the scene in front of the cameras. And I guess she's going back home and going back into her room, and Cliff is not allowed to go in that room. So that's where we have Latrice and Cliff. I don't know if we're going to have another scene with them anytime soon, but it needs to be, because a conversation needs to be ongoing for them to get anywhere. You know, there has to be words spoken for them to move on. All right, so in the next scene now, we have the ladies meeting up for lunch. We have Marie, Akeisha, and Soguchi. They're meeting up for lunch. Soguchi is telling them about her mother-in-law that came, and you know how the conversation went. And the other ladies were like, good luck to you, girl, because I don't know how you gonna do that. And then Marie telling Akeisha, because Soguchi already know about the pop-up with Glen, and you know how that went. So they talked about that for a little bit. Then they said, okay, Latrice invited us to an event. Marie, are you going? Marie's like, hell no, I ain't going. That girl and I do not get along. I tell you, she's a snake, and everything she does is to benefit her. She said, she sent me an invitation, but I am not going. I'm like, okay, then I guess Marie is not going to Soguchi's wig event. And the ladies that not really, because then I think it was Soguchi who said, you know, initially I like Latrice, but based on what she did to me regarding that property, her signing with a different agent after I showed her properties, and as we know, it was only one that she showed her, she felt that I believe Soguchi should have just waited for her to show her more properties and then decide to pick one from everything that was shown to her. But she's just throwing some words about Latrice, and the two ladies, I guess they claim they are not going, but Akeisha's like, I'm going. I'm going to go see what this is about. She's like, I'm friends with some of you guys. As we all know, she's not friends with Tambra, so she's going to go to the event. All right, so we left the ladies there. This episode is a little bit dry, in my opinion. So now we see the guys meet up for drink. Actually, it's just Cliff and Glen. They're meeting up for drinks. Glen is telling Cliff what's going on with him trying to get his family back, and you know the fact that, you know, since the reunion he haven't been with his wife, and it's driving him crazy. So Cliff gave him some advice. He's like, listen, because Glen mentioned something about being a slinky, bending over backwards to please her and doing everything he tried to do, it just backfires and it doesn't work. So Glen telling him basically, well, you need to stop doing all those things, and it's a possibility that it is over. He's like, follow JJ's advice, where JJ told him to just stop pursuing Letitia and just, you know, try to wrap it up and put a bow on it and just say, yeah, well, it's over. And Glen is like, no, I'm not ready to do that yet. I want my wife back. I want my family back. He's telling Cliff, he's telling Cliff about, you know, everything that he's been trying to do, and that Letitia really don't want to be with him, and he don't know what else to do. So really, Cliff he tried to give him advice, but everything he gave him, he was just smooshing it, swatting it down, not listening. So I think Cliff just gave up on the advice given because he realized that it wasn't getting through to Glen. So now we have Latrice and her mom. Her mom is coming over to help her. They're gonna cook together, and she's just gonna talk to her mom about what's going on. She tells her mom that when her husband comes home, he wants to have his food ready to go, and the mom is like, so what time is that? Latrice is like, well, I don't know what time he's gonna be here. He just comes in whenever he wants to, and whenever he wants to. Whenever he comes, he wants his food ready. So I'm wondering, I'm like, Latrice is really trying to balance a lot. She has a business that she's trying to maintain. She's trying to expand on the business, and she's trying to please her husband. So her mama told her, listen, you can't do everything. She's like, there's a 20-year age gap between you two. There are things in life that you have not experienced yet, where he has gone and lived his whole life already. He's at the point where he just wants everything to be, to settle down and just go to work and come in, and he expects you to be there. But Latrice is like, but that's not how I want to live my life. She's like, if you're going to go out and do things as my husband, I want to be able to turn up too, and even more. She's like, there's things that I want to do. So I'm thinking that the relationship between Latrice and Cliff, I don't know if this is going to last, because they seem not to be compatible. So I'm wondering, how on earth did they get together if they're not compatible? Didn't they date before they got married? So her mom told her, listen, your dad didn't want me to work. I didn't work. And because of that, I was in the house for how many years? I had 6 children, and eventually I divorced him because I resented him. And I don't want you to be in that position where it's going to be like that for you. So there's some things that you need to think about. There's some things that you need to do. You need to have a serious talk with your husband. If not, then your marriage is not about to last. She's like, I'm your mother, and I must tell you that there are nights when you call me and you talk to me, I can't rest because I'm worried about you. And Latrice told her mom, I don't want you to do that, because, I'm all right. I'm going to be okay. I'm just, venting or looking for some advice, but don't worry about me. I'm going to be all right. So that was the situation between Latrice and her mom, where they were cooking dinner for Cliff for when he came home, at whatever time he showed up at home. All right, now we have Aikisha, and she is meeting up with her mom, who they call Grandstand. And now we get to find out a little bit more about Aikisha's life and how she came about. So she tells us that she was a product of an affair out of wedlock. So apparently her dad had an affair with someone, and they brought the baby home. I guess her dad was raising her, but it so happened that the whole family took her in, and the lady who she's calling Grandstand, or her mom, is actually her aunt. So her aunt adopted her when she was younger, and we come to find out that her aunt, or her mom, we're just gonna call her mom. Her mom is rich. Her mom has 2 doctorate degrees, she said, one from being an anesthesiologist, and she's also a therapist, I believe. But on top of that, all of the Ferry Street project that she's supposed to be working on, all of that was willed to her mother, and now her mother is willing it to her. At least she said most of it, because she told her, she's like, I made some amendments to my will. And Aikisha was like, don't be go changing your will around now. She's like, no, I'm just making some amendments to the will, to make sure that everybody's covered, because the aunt doesn't have any children, so she's making that sure. And remember, Aikisha have 2 kids, so she's making sure those kids are taken care of. So her mom is getting ready to travel to Italy. I'm guessing it's an extended vacation, because you don't go to Italy for a week. That's months, I think, that she'll be gone. So she's meeting with Aikisha to go over some things that need to be taken care of. She said that the buildings on Ferry Street, they're basically old, but they need to be maintained. So she's giving her tips and instructions of how to make sure everything is kept up. Because we know that Aikisha pitched her group, or her business pitched an idea or a business plan to the, and because it's a historical community, I guess, you have to get special permission in order to do certain things. I believe you have to restore the outside of the building, but on the inside it could be a little bit more updated because it's a historical neighborhood. So they pitched a plan to whatever board they needed, to the city council, and they are waiting to get an approval. Multiple businesses pitched their plan, so they're waiting to see if they were approved for what needs to be done. So it's a little bit confusing, but I'm hoping as we go on with the episode that Akeisha will unravel it a little bit more and help us understand it better. So, because like I said, it's a lot to go through. So I hope I've explained Akeisha's situation as best as I can. So we leave her there with her mom, and we go to visit Glen and JJ. So we have Glen in the studio. He is recording a song for his wife Letitia. We find out that Glen has been dabbling in rap for a very long time. We see a quick clip of one of his videos back in the days, and we see Glen in the studio. And I gotta say, God darn no, Glen. No, according to JJ, when JJ is one, he speaks so fast, he always throwing God darn, God darn, God darn. And I'm saying, God darn, no to Glen. Glen, no. That rap, even after the producer told you, listen, you're feeling some heartbreak, let it come through, you still didn't. And I'm like, okay, it's gonna get a little better as we go on. Please let it get better as we go on. And as we see, it doesn't get any better as we go on. So thank the producers of the show who cut it when they did, because I couldn't listen to not one more verse of that rap that Glen was spitting. And then we have his little cronies in outside the sound booth doing the dance and whatever, throwing up their hands, running to the running to the lyrics. You got Glen hyping him up. I mean, JJ hyping him up like it's good. No, it wasn't darn good at all. So no, Glen, hang it up. So while he's there now, okay, you know how it is when they finish doing their project and they get use of the space to have a conversation. He's talking to JJ about, still wanting his family back. He already had to talk with Cliff. Cliff already told him what to do. Now he's talking to JJ about it. JJ asks him, how long has it been since you've been going through this with your wife? He's like, a year. JJ's like, when I was with my ex-wife, it took me 3 years to move on, and I finally got it. Glen was like, I don't want my son to grow up without his dad. I didn't see my dad for 20 years, and that affected me a lot. So he's like, I don't want that to happen for Joshua. And then the phone rang. It so happens they're calling him. We didn't actually find out, until the next scene what happened. But they had to cut the scene short. Then we see Glen walking into Letitia's office. And he's like, you and I are not getting along really right now, but I need you by my side. So he tells her that his grandmother was rushed to the hospital. So my question is, if your grandma is rushed to the hospital, why aren't you rushing to the hospital? Where you going? What are you going over Letitia's office for? What is she about to do for you? So, all right. He's like, I'm not sure what's going on, but I know they took my mom to the hospital. He tells us that he and Letitia were high school sweethearts. So his grandmother, Letitia, knows his grandmom, and it's like that's her grandma as well. So Letitia's all right. Let me call Tanisha. I'm assuming Tanisha is Glen's sister. So they called Tanisha. Tanisha told him, listen, she was running a fever. She had a temperature, and it wouldn't break. She wasn't eating, and when we rushed her to the hospital, finally the temperature broke, and they gave her some pain medication and sent her back home, and tell her that now we are in hospice care. I'm like, okay. Hospice care means end of life. We're gonna make you comfortable until you pass. So I'm assuming that grandma had an ailment, and there's nothing else that the doctors could do for her. So they're gonna let her go home and pass away at home. But when Letitia calls Tanisha and Tanisha tells her everything that's going on, she's like, hospice, and They just left it at that. But I'm guessing that we're not supposed to know what hospice is. Yeah, well, we know hospice is, sorry to hear that. Glen's grandma is at the end of life. And he said he just lost his uncle a little while ago. So he's still hurting from that. So he just needed Letitia to be there for him in the situation that he's going through right now. So I believe that is where we left the episode. So that's it for that episode. And they gave us a preview of next week. And it seems like JJ's ex-wife and somebody is going off at the wig event. I'm guessing it's the wig event because it's the only event we know that's coming up. So I guess we just gotta wait for next week to see everything that happens. And that was the episode. So like I said, this episode was kind of, it's still episode 4. We have a ways to go, so I'm guessing it's gonna pick up. But I feel that Latrice and Cliff needs to be having more conversation. We need to find out more in depth about what happened with Josh and Cliff in the house when he asked Josh to leave or kick Josh out of his house, like he says. And according to Marie, she's like, the whole collective needs to cut Latrice off because Latrice is a snake and she's a liar and all of that. So I don't know about that. Marie, why you want to kick Latrice out of the collective? That ain't cool. We also know that Tambra, we didn't see Tambra this episode. So she wasn't there for anybody to call her out for being a liar. So we didn't see her at all this episode, but I'm sure there's more to come. So anyway, guys, that is it. That is my recap and my review of Belle Collective Season 3, Episode 4, titled Boys to Men. And as always, I thank you for watching / listening. And until next time, be sure to take care of yourself and your family. Bye-bye.